The Pitchsider. Pitchside for every game.
Hello and welcome back to the Pitchsider Podcast. Been an interesting week this week with the wrap up of the transfer window, as well as the Premier League is back, and also a whole host of other news to cover. Let's get started. We will start with the Premier League. Some of the biggest news coming out this week in the Premier League is regarding Man United's forward Mason Greenwood. Many of you may remember from last year, about this time, he was arrested due to some claims around sexual nature. If you want more information, go and do some more research by yourself. But he has been cleared of all conduct. So now he is a free man, and he has every right to go back and play football, which leads us on to how this will affect him. So he was a talented football player, scoring a number of goals he's about over 100 games for United before this allegation that came against him. And he was one of United's brightest sparks under Ollie. This has led to a number of questions, whether United will want him back at the club, whether United are willing to let him play at the club, whether the fans will actually want him, or whether he will just quit football entirely. Let's start with the last question. I think he is likely to come back and play for some form of football. He looks to be waiting on United's decision. He's still a United player, whether they will terminate his contract or not. It is currently being announced by United that they are going through investigation in their end and seeing whether they want him back at the club or not. I think he will be a bit, by the fans, he will be a bit sort of disrespected, definitely booed by a lot of the away fans, especially in the Premier League. So it'd be interesting to see whether United take that shot or not. United staff apparently coming out this weekend, they are 50-50 whether they want him back in the league, back around at Old Trafford and back at their training ground. He obviously will be a talented football player, and definitely wherever he ends up, he will have maybe a successful career. But this is definitely hampered. He's probably never going to be world class. Having a year out of football at his age, he's lost a lot of that sort of talent. But he'll probably be able to get it back, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And there's also been rumours coming out this week that he is likely to be interested in talks with clubs in China. They're definitely interested in him if he does leave the UK and does leave United. But we'll keep you up to date with this as we go on. The other news that is coming out of London is Conte. Conte, if you haven't seen, has had surgery to undergo a removal of gallbladder due to having some pains during the end of the transfer window. This has led him to be not at the touchline for Manchester United, and it looks like he's going to be out for Leicester, and it's touch and go whether he will be there for their Champions League first leg. So we wish him a speedy and successful recovery, and we can't wait to see him back at the touchline in charge of Spurs. Yet, before we get on to this weekend's football, let's talk about the Premier League's transfer window. We'll go through everything that's happened in the Premier League over deadline day, leading up and wherever, and we will also go through the Europeans transfer window, not as long, when we get to that in the European section. So deadline day in the Premier League obviously was very, very busy, expensive. A lot of moves have happened. A lot of big moves have happened as well, and the British transfer record was broken by Chelsea. But we'll get on to that in a minute. So the day really started out with Arsenal loaning their Brazilian young forward Marquinhos. Has been sort of a useful sub for Arsenal, but definitely one that needs loan and needs time. And definitely a lot of loans that have happened. Some of the bigger transfers that happened happened more to the end of the transfer window, definitely on deadline, sort of deadline day, and it's all started off with Leeds signing Diego Montoya. He is a teenager, young defender, signed from a 3.5 year deal. Definitely an up and coming one, and he'll join Leeds under-21 squad. One of the biggest ones earlier on, more about 8 o'clock, was Jorginho. He has left Chelsea. It was £12 million fee. His contract was up in the summer. He's joined league leaders Arsenal, and there looks to be a number of add-ons if they do win. But definitely a good signing. Arsenal needed to bolster their midfield, and definitely gives them an option. And it's good. It seems to be a good deal. And is regarded around sort of the footballing world to be a sort of very good deal for both clubs. Arsenal getting a player that they need, and Chelsea definitely getting rid of a player that wasn't going to sign a new contract and make it a bit of money there, but it doesn't lad up to their outgoings. Arsenal have also been busy with a number of outgoings. Sambo Lakonga has joined Crystal Palace on loan, and they also did loan out Cedric to the Championship. Tottenham have signed Pedro Porro. It's a loan deal with an obligation to buy for 40 million in the summer from Sporting Lisbon. Attacking forward that is definitely going to add something to their side. He is going to wear number 23 at the club. Definitely a impressive sort of deal for Spurs, and definitely going to add a bit of quality for their definitely going to add some quality to their team. He previously has played at Man City but didn't play for the first team, and fellow defender at Spurs, Spence, has left Spurs, signing for Rennes on loan for the rest of the season, which has meant that Pedro Porro will come in and fill that gap left in him by the squad. Nottingham Forest have been busy. They signed 3 players on deadline day, and they signed Felipe from Atletico Madrid, the defender. Definitely one that will bolster their defence. They also have signed John Joe Shelby from Newcastle. Good signing. They definitely needed someone to sort of pull together in their midfield. And probably the highest, sort of the more bemusing one is Navas, Carlos Navas from PSG. The goalkeeper 36 has signed as and he'll provide cover for the rest of the season to an injured Dean Henderson. This has left about 30 signings Forest have made all season. So they've basically signed a whole new team. And definitely Steve Cooper has been doing a good job. He has pulled together the whole squad, and they're definitely on a run of fixtures, especially winning 1-0 this weekend. And sort of definitely good to see them sort of start to climb up the table. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can keep this up, and all of these signings can actually work to save them from relegation. The Manchester United have loaned Marcel Sabitzer from Bayern Munich. He is Bayern Munich's 4th choice centre midfield, and he joins United on loan as cover to Eriksen, as on deadline day it was announced that Eriksen would be out for 3 to 4 months, and definitely been a keystone to United's success, so it'll be interesting to see how well he can do at United. Leicester have signed Harry Skututa from Stoke for 15 million, rising to 20 million with add-ons. Southampton have signed Rennes player Samaka. It is their record signing. He plays for Ghana, and the 20-year-old who plays on the left. He's won 15 caps for Ghana, and it's definitely a interesting one, and see whether he can have a success at Southampton and hopefully save them from relegation. And let's talk finally about the biggest transfer in British history, completed right on deadline day. Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea. We saw him in action on Friday, made a brilliant start to life in the Premier League. He breaks the record by 7 million. Signed an 8.5-year contract at Stamford Bridge, and it takes Chelsea's overall summer spending to 270 million, and that's 17 players new from Todd Bowley's time. Yeah, he's definitely sort of critical to Argentina's win. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how he will cope in the Premier League, but he looks to be settled in at home after one game already, so it's definitely, as he gets to adapt more to his surroundings, it's going to be very interesting to see how well he can do at Stamford Bridge and how well he could push Chelsea, whether they can start climbing up the table. Can't really judge him on his first game. He was literally had one training session, was thrown in the deep end to replace Jorginho. So it'd be interesting to see how well he if he can definitely hit the ground running, and see where he can propel Chelsea to. Definitely going to be a key man for a number of years to come, as long as Chelsea can find a decent partnership for him. And there was one more transfer from Chelsea, which we'll get onto in the European section. But definitely an exciting time. Probably the Premier League have spent quite a lot of money within just January, and definitely interesting to see whether the money that was spent in the Premier League, whether that will affect what the European sides do. So that's where predominantly all of that money was spent. But yeah, obviously bringing a lot of exciting young talent to the Premier League, and see where that can take us, whether it can spice up the end of the season. Let's get on and talk about some of the Premier League football. So let's start on Friday. Very hyped game with all of Chelsea's new signings starting, especially Enzo Fernandez, we just mentioned. However, it didn't end as successful as Chelsea would have liked. Ended 0-0 to Fulham. Probably was quite an even game. Both teams had chances to score. So, especially with Chelsea's trying to find their feet, it's definitely going to be interesting to see whether their two new signings can start making them get wins, or whether they'll carry on where they are, sitting down in 9th. But Chelsea do overtake Liverpool this weekend. But yeah, definitely sort of a game not to watch if you aren't really into Chelsea or Fulham. Arsenal faced Everton. Newly appointed Sean Dyche took his first game in charge, leading Everton to a 1-0 victory over the league leaders. Definitely interesting game. Sean Dyche turning up. James Tarkowski, one of his sort of lieutenants in the squad, definitely scoring and making his mark proven. And good 3 points for Everton. 3 points that are valuably needed for Everton in their fight to stay up. But Arsenal, they lost a chance to go 3 points further clear, which would take them to an 8-point lead over Man City. But we'll get on to Man City in a minute. Probably one of the games of the weekend was Leicester versus Aston Villa. 6 goals in this game, 4-2, ending to Leicester City. New signing Tete scoring on his debut. Brentford beat Southampton 3-0. Brighton beat Bournemouth 1-0. Manchester United got a 2-1 victory over Palace. One of the biggest shocks over the weekend was how much Liverpool lost to Wolves. Wolves got 3 points and 3-0 victory over Liverpool. Definitely an interesting one. Bad defending by Liverpool. Definitely something they need to work on. So it's going to be interesting to see how their rest of the season is going to go. And probably likely that their season is now over. Definitely if they lose to Real Madrid in the Champions League, which is definitely going to be Bookie's favourite Real Madrid. their season will definitely be over then. Newcastle were held at a draw 1-1 to West Ham. Today's fixtures: Nottingham Forest beat Leeds 1-0, and Nottingham Forest carry on their superb form. And Tottenham beat Manchester City 1-0. So Manchester City had a chance to go 2 points, 3 points closer to Arsenal, and close that gap to 2 points, and they ended up not doing that, and it ended 1-0 to Man City. So let's have a quick look at the Premier League table. So Arsenal remain top with a 5-point gap with Man City. Both teams are losing. Manchester United open the gap on Newcastle and closed the gap on Man City, now down to 3 points. Arsenal do have a game in hand, so it could go to 8 points again. Tottenham closed the gap on Newcastle, being at 39 points, and 6th to 10th in the table continues to be very close. Brighton on 34, Brentford on 33, Fulham on 32, Chelsea on 30, and Liverpool on 29. Aston Villa are closing the gap. And at the bottom of the table, Southampton continue to be bottom. Bournemouth have 2 points, and Everton are just 18 points. They were 15th, but after the couple of games that happened, they now drop back down into the relegation zone. Leeds are joint on Everton, on points on Everton, but they do have a game in hand. So interesting in the Premier League, bit topsy-turvy, few teams doing overly better than you would expect, and definitely an interesting one to watch out for. But let's go to the European leagues. Been a lot happening, bit of news here and there. So if we start with the Bundesliga, in the Bundesliga, Borussia Dortmund won 5-1 over Freiburg, and this was Sebastian Haller return from his cancer, and he scores on the 51st minute and looks to be carrying on where he left off after his time out with cancer, but definitely back fully fit and raring to go, hungry for goals. So it'll be interesting to see how he does for the rest of the season, and we'll keep you up to date with that. Cologne drew to Leipzig 0-0. Union Berlin carry on their superb season 2-1 over Mainz. Dortmund beat Wolfsburg 4-2 in this game, with Coleman getting the brace, with Müller scoring on the 19th minute and Musala on the 71st, and Kimmich being sent off in this game. And good victory leads to Bayern Munich going top with Union Berlin in 1 point. Dortmund are on 37 with Leipzig on 36. Very tight in the Bundesliga, still anyone's to play for. But Hertha Berlin and Schalke both down in that relegation zone and look to be going down this season. If we move to La Liga, in La Liga, Real Madrid beat Valencia to close the gap on Barcelona, now down to 5 points, but Barcelona have a game in hand, which will be played tonight against Seville. Real Madrid have lost this weekend to Mallorca. Nacho scored the only goal. Real Madrid lost to Mallorca this weekend. Nacho scoring an own goal for Real Madrid. Asensio missing a penalty, and this opens up the gap. So if Barcelona beat Seville this weekend, it will be 8 points clear from them at the top of La Liga. Definitely a bit of a different tie from what happened last year with Real Madrid. Atletico Madrid drew this weekend 1-1, so this leaves the table Barcelona at 50 points, Real Madrid in second with 45, Real Sociedad with 39, and Atletico Madrid are in 35 points in fourth. Not as open as the Bundesliga. The table is definitely favouring Barcelona this year with that 5 point gap, and interesting to see how far they can go and whether they can win it and stop Real Madrid getting the double. Let's move to Serie A quickly. Napoli continue their run of success. They're now 16 points clear of Inter Milan, who do have a game in hand against AC Milan. So definitely a game to watch tonight. 3-0 over Spezia. And this leaves them to definitely have almost two hands on that trophy. Definitely interesting to see it, and they're definitely running away with the league. Juventus are down in 13th, but they do have a game in hand. And it'd be interesting to see whether Real Madrid can get back up. Looks like they're not doing as well as many people would have thought, but Inter versus AC Milan looks a very tasty fight. And finally, Ligue 1. PSG continue their dominance of this league, but they still have Messi. He scored in their fight back against Toulouse, so it'll be interesting to see how far they can go in the Champions League without their main man Mbappe. Let's finally move on to the transfers. So there's been a few big transfers around, not compared to like the Premier League, and they don't have as much money, but there's been a few players that have moved, starting off with João Cancelo. He joined in a shock move. He joined Bayern Munich. He's currently on loan, but they do have an option to buy for 70 million. And he did provide his first assist in his first Bundesliga game this weekend. So interesting to see how well he will do in the Bundesliga. Definitely could be one of the best fullbacks in that league. So we will wait patiently to see how well he will do, and we'll definitely keep you more up to date with that. As I mentioned, Spence joined Rennes on loan from Tottenham. No option to buy here. Roma have signed Diego Llorente from Leeds on a loan deal until the rest of the season, with a view to make it permanent if they want to at the end. He has made 56 appearances since joining from Sociedad in 2020. And interesting to see how well he will do in Serie A after joining Jose Mourinho's sixth place team. Coventry midfielder Julian Da Costa, have joined AC Nantes on loan. The defender moves on loan to the third division team until the end of the season, and interesting to see how well he will do there if you are a Coventry fan. And the final biggest transfer is Matt Doherty. He was released by Tottenham and has joined Atletico Madrid, which allowed Felipe to move to Nottingham Forest. And definitely interested to see how well he can do, whether he can have sort of the same effect that Kieran Trippier did back then. But he joins Atletico Madrid on Spurs, and the 31-year-old was expected to make the move on loan, but then Spurs mutually ended his contract after they confirmed the arrival of Pedro Pari. So it's been an interesting January number of transfers that have happened, and definitely a number of big transfers, especially if you are in the Premier League. But a few moves have been made in Europe, but they've made a lot of money. So it'd be interesting to see how well they can do and what they will spend in the summer window. But if you want to keep up with the latest gossip, check out the Pitchsider.com. The website is weekly updated with all the latest gossip from that week. But if you require daily gossip, please check out our Twitter page and Instagram page. It's _Pitchsider. And please give us a follow on both pages. And also do check out our YouTube channel, where all the podcasts will be uploaded weekly. Next week will be a slightly different one due to other commitments. The Pitchsider podcast will be pre-recorded, so it'll be a look at what is happening with teams like Liverpool not doing as well this season, what is going on in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to watch, and the next podcast after that will have the weekend's news plus a roundup of what's happened from the Champions League. That is right, the Champions League is finally back from the 12th, so it'll be interesting to see who does what, and there's definitely a big games to keep an eye out. So whatever you're doing this week, I hope you have a fantastic week, and look forward to speaking to you next week. Enjoy your week, hope everything goes well, and thank you for listening, and goodbye.
For all the latest news, transfers, and football articles, check out thepitchsider.com. It's the place to be. Contact us on our socials. Instagram and Twitter is @thepitchsider, or via email is thepitchsider@hotmail.com.